I grew up not really liking much of the music that I was hearing on the radio. The few that I did like were the ones that were kind of funny. It was my mother kind of got me into comedy music more so because she had an Alan Sherman record from the 1960s that she played for me. Between Alan Sherman and Weird Al, and then I discovered rap music, and I was like, I'm gonna start making my own raps. So I started writing my own raps, and I just kind of very quickly started incorporating jokes into my verses. And then we quote unquote officially formed the group Sudden Death in 1986, me and two of my friends, and started trying to record songs. In 1990, we had our first song played on the Dr. Demento show, which was On Board. And then after that, I decided I wanted to take the lead, and I should have dropped the name Sudden Death at that point, but I didn't. By the mid 2000s, I was actually good. I knew what I was doing. I could record, I could rap, had a pretty good concept of how to be funny. I have this, I call it a curse, where I can never just be a fan of something. Whenever I see something really cool that somebody made, I want to have done that. So I started teaching myself how to program when I was like 9 or 10 on my father's Apple II Plus. And I went to an Apple user group meeting, and I met somebody from Apple, and I talked to him, and I was like, hey, I want to make a game. And he just looked at me and he goes, you're too young to make a game. You can't make a game. And he walked away. And me being the 9-year-old kid that I was, believed him. And I was like, oh, you know, and so I never touched it again. Fast forward to college, I get my degree in illustration. I still have this bug in me to make games. I found a guy online who was a programmer, and I was like, hey, you want to make a game? I'll do the graphics, you do the programming. We'll split whatever money we make 50-50. We'll sell it as shareware. This was in the 90s. And we started working on the game, and we had it basically done. And there was one showstopper bug, which was if you clicked outside of the game area, the entire computer crashed. And I was like, we can't ship with that bug. I never heard from him again. He completely ghosted me. I was like, well, time for me to get programming again. And I programmed a very simple and basic Caribbean stud poker simulator. In the README, the first thing I said is, this is my first attempt at programming anything, be kind. I got a lot of positive support from, the Mac shareware community. They were like, hey, for a first game, this is really good. I landed on a language called Prograph, and I released a game called Chroma something or other. That was my first success in video gaming because I licensed that game to AOL to play over Instant Messenger. They had to completely reprogram it. I sent them the Prograph code. Then they were like, yeah, we're doing our thing in Java. We can't do anything with this. I'm like, well, all the logic is there. You could figure it out, but they had to basically rebuild the game in Java. Unfortunately, I got into Prograph right as it was dying, so I had to find something else. And then in 99, I moved to New Jersey and took a job at a marketing agency as a graphic designer. One of the other guys who worked there was their interactive developer, and he was building CD-ROMs using Director. And I was like, I need to learn Director. So I spoke to my boss, and I was like, hey, I'm interested in learning Director. You think that would be okay? And he was like, sure, we could always use another Director developer. Go for it. So I just spent my downtime doing tutorials and learning Director. And I was like, I need a project. I can't just do tutorials. I need a project. So I came up with the idea for Weird Al's Great Adventure, which is based on the Atari 2600 game Adventure. And then, as with most of my other projects, my brain starts going, and I'm like, oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do this. And somehow Al's accordion popped into my head. The point is, instead of, bringing the chalice back to the Gold Castle, you're finding Weird Al's lost accordion and bringing it back to his house. And you meet his band members along the way, and you can meet Dr. Demento. There's all sorts of Weird Al references throughout the game. After that, I kind of started focusing more on my music. So the video game stuff kind of fell to the wayside. However, back in 2012 or 2013, my son came up with an idea for a video game. It's called Sneaky Monster, and the idea is you play a monster who has to go into a house, sneak through the house without making any noise, and then scare the kid in his bedroom. And I was like, that's actually a really good idea for a game. We should make it. So we started programming the game in Game Salad. And then I was like, I really should hire somebody to finish this because I'm not going to have the time. The game is basically done. I found a Game Salad developer, and so what I did was I did a Kickstarter for it. Managed to raise the money for the Kickstarter. Turned out to not be enough, so we weren't able to finish the game. And as of now, the game still isn't finished. It's been like 10 years now. I am hoping to get back to it soon. I still do comedy rap. I'm hoping to get a new album out fairly soon. My latest hit song was from 2 years ago. I did a parody of WAP by Cardi B called WAPC, about washing your cat.
Hear it scream, hear it yell, like a demon beast from hell. I will wash till you don't smell, but I can tell you this will not end well.
If you're into comedy music in general, I run a website called The Fump, the Funny Music Project, which is at thefump.com. We post a new comedy song every Tuesday and Friday, and then every 2 months we put out a compilation album. I'm working on volume 108 right now. You can follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook as DevoSpice. I do multiple podcasts. I do a podcast called Manic Mondays, which is a weekly comedy podcast. I do a weekly Fump-related podcast called The Fumpcast, or the Funny Music Podcast, every Thursday night with Luke Ski. I do a monthly podcast called The Insider for hardcore fans of DevoSpice, want to know what's going on behind the scenes. And I most recently started a new podcast called Random Acts of Horror, which is a horror movie review podcast where we pick something at random and then watch it and then talk about it. My main outlet is DevoSpice.com. I have a mailing list there. That's where I post all my news and music